Hi, and welcome to another episode of Lifestyle Unlimited, where we believe living your life in an unlimited mindset is the key to personal happiness, financial happiness. But today we do got a serious topic to discuss, Peter, about what's going on with the economy right now, especially in the real estate market.
Well, I'll tell you, the reason I wanted to talk about this is like the question I wanted to ponder, and I think I got my own personal answer to this. Are we literally in the biggest declining real estate market ever? And I could tell you in my career, 22 plus years, it is a free fall right now. It is an absolute free fall. I'll give you an example. We just closed a deal last week where when we bought it, we had it comped out. We were selling it for $150,000. Now, the question is always, well, how do you know your numbers are right? Our numbers are right on that deal because we were using the same agent we've used for over 10 years in that marketplace.
And the comps held it up.
Everything. I mean, we were in a $150,000 home. We just sold it 3 months after put it in the market, 4 months after put it in the market, and we went from 150, and our final listing price was like 99.
Which is kind of terrible because really a $150,000 house, it's kind of hard to make big mistakes on that. Do you know what I mean? Like, usually you don't lose like that on that price.
Well, and we did, but here's the thing. That's not just there. I can give you example upon example across the states right now where that's happening and the deals that we're involved in. And so I would say, it's interesting, after the '08 crash, and the '08 crash was like, there was devaluation in prices. There's no question the market went down. But it went down by no means did it go as far down as it's going now, and not by no means as quickly as it did. And back then, I remember after '08, I was telling people, well, look, real estate just goes down by 5-10%, and everybody thinks the world's coming to an end. And back then, it was coming to an end, what appeared to be back then, right? Now we're seeing like 30-40% drops in like 30, 60, 90-day cycle. So I think, and again, my specific experience is in a couple plus decades in this business. Maybe during the Great Depression it was worse than this, but I could tell you, I think in most of our lifetimes, if not all of the lifetimes that people listening to this is no question the biggest drop and the quickest. That's the other thing. It's not just the biggest. It's one thing to be the biggest, but it's taken 6 years to get there. Just a slow decline. This is the biggest, and it also happens to be the fastest market drop that I've ever experienced and I've ever seen.
I have a little bit different opinion about it. The difference between like the '08 crash, that was bad loans, right? Everybody hit balloons and couldn't pay the balloons. I know because I did it. Now it's a different problem, meaning there were plenty of buyers, okay? There were plenty of buyers to buy homes because, everybody remembers, like earlier this year, things were flying off the shelf and they were going for more than what they were worth. That's because the interest rates were lower and there were more buyers. What has happened now is that with the interest rates rising, that is going to rise the monthly payment on that mortgage. The problem with that is that means all these buyers just got knocked off because there's no homes in that price range. They can no longer afford that loan. So you're seeing homes sit on the market because there's simply not buyers that can afford it, right? Or maybe they're not even going to try. And, what I think is the impending problem, and you see me looking at my home, I'd like to talk a little bit about some of these stats that came out in August of 2022. I'm sure we'll be able to get some more numbers coming out for September and October later. What it's talking about, this is under SoFi Learn. It's the foreclosure rates for all 50 states in the month of August. So I think there's some things that I wanted to go over here, right?
I can imagine.
So it talks about, despite the mortgage interest rates blasting through the 6% threshold for the first time in 14 years. Now stop. Explain that. Like, what do they mean by the mortgage interest rate blasting through 6% threshold?
Well, reality is we've been in historically low interest rate mode. It was not uncommon for people to get mortgages 3%, 3.5%. And so what that meant, and this is kind of along the lines of what Julie, you're talking about, is there was a bigger pool of buyers. Because, when you're only paying, 2, 3, 4% on your money, to a degree, that's like free money. I mean, you know what I mean? That's like, okay, give me as much as you can give me. And now, when we get into the 6% rate, this is where it is very common for experts to tell us at 6% rate, almost all the people on their lower income all the way to the mid income are going to feel. Because what that basically means, the best way to explain that, your monthly mortgage payment gets higher and higher the more interest rate you pay. And right around that 6% is when majority, like a huge, huge, huge portion of the home buyers are starting to feel it. You get above 6%, which is what we're getting to right now, this is where cost purchases become prohibitive for a lot of people. I mean, not only is it hurting you, like you have to cut back, but it literally becomes prohibitive. And this is where problems really begin.
Yeah, because it's another type of problem, right? So they're highest in 14 years, and its home prices show no sign right this minute, which it is now. This was written in August. What Peter's talking about in the last month, it is. Right, but even July of this year, right? The average median home price is $403,000. $403,000. Think about that. Like, that's the medium home price.
Yeah.
Regular blue collar people, $400,000 home is, I mean, no way you slice it. That's a lot of money. I mean, that's a lot of money, and that's 11% higher than what it was in July 2021 at $365,000. At the same time, the housing supply remains to be as deficient, meaning there's more buyers than there are
That's
homes
right.
for sale. But we're doing this weird thing over these next couple of months where it's starting to go the overall. But what gets me, guys, this is what's going on that I think everybody needs to be aware of, which is the amount of pre-foreclosures that are in existence right now. Peter, what happens whenever we have a rise in pre-foreclosure? I think at the beginning of the year we were close to 3 million Americans in pre-foreclosure. I think we're close to 10 million. So what's that? It's like triple what it was.
Over triple. Well, if you think about it, and I definitely want to address that specifically, but there's different factors that are taking place. There's different factors that take place. Oh, on top of that, think about this. We just came out of a pandemic. Right now, there's a lot of people going into pre-foreclosure where they basically can't afford their monthly mortgage payment, right? Just because they can't afford their monthly mortgage payments. Well, think about all the people that came out of the pandemic, right? They had no intention of ever picking up their monthly mortgage payments. So you have all the influx of pandemic people. Now you have the influx of people who just can't afford it because of the higher interest rates. And so it's really, really going to create havoc on the real estate market. Now, interestingly enough, as it relates to pre-foreclosure, and I know you weren't thinking about this, but this is an interesting thing. How are banks going to react to this? Like, we know banks are not in the business of taking back properties, right? A lot of times when we talk about pre-foreclosures, we're always talking about, well, how does it affect us? Like from an investor's perspective, or from an inventory perspective, or from a seller perspective, from a buyer perspective. Well, I think an interesting thing is, how are the banks going to react to this? Because traditionally, banks are not in the business of taking property back, right? But there's going to be a glut right now. There's going to be an absolute glut, and obviously, here in a minute, I want to turn this around to show people where there is really huge opportunities now. But what's your opinion? Like, are banks going to change their mind and they are going to get into real estate business, you think? Or do you think they're going to do, again, everything to avoid it, to make...
Here's what I think. I think in 2008, 2009, they were forced to for the first time ever.
Well, they had to.
They had to. I think the bank is probably 100% going to learn from what happened in 08 and 09. And they know better now how to handle something like this going on. So I think that they're going to force these foreclosures, and they are already happening faster now than they were a year ago. I mean, like, to give you an example, like, to me, this blows my mind. So out of 50 states, right, Illinois is the highest in pre-foreclosures right now, then Delaware, then South Carolina, New Jersey, and Florida at number 5. Let's talk about the top 5 ones. Illinois made the top spot for the highest foreclosure rate. Of its 5,426,000 homes, 2,818 of them went into foreclosure, making this the 6th most populated state foreclosure rate. 1 in every 1,026 homes in Illinois is in pre-foreclosure right now. So 1 in less than 2,000 homes are in pre-foreclosure. And that sounds like 1 in 2,000. That sounds like a lot. It's not. You look at a big neighborhood, you could have a couple thousand homes in a couple miles. I mean, and that's 1 in every 1,900 homes. That's crazy, right? South Carolina, it's, 1 in every 970. I mean, the list just goes on and on and on and on. Apparently, the only state that seems to not doing so bad is the state of, District of Columbia. At number is faring the best right now, in Vermont. So, I think if you're a real estate investor, or if you're not, you need to be cognizant of the tea leaves, right?
Here's I think how most investors need to understand this. We spent the last 10 minutes talking about it's going down, it's crashing, it's falling apart, more pre-foreclosures, what are banks going to do, what are people going to do? But the reality is this: the big picture is the opportunities that are taking place. While we're crashing, here's what we as investors have to understand. We have to understand you have to comp things differently. We have to understand you have to even project, whereas in traditional comps, you go in the rears, like here's what happened in the last 6 months. Here you got to be almost predicting.
Well, then you really, like in the past with the bullish market, I only wanted to look at recent sales. That means properties that have sold and at what price. I think it's important to look at current listings and analyze days on market, right, and price drops. So you can't look at the past for your numbers anymore like we always think of doing it. You got to look at projections. To me, the way to project is to look at days on market of current listings, like in that area.
That's right. And also project how quickly things are dropping, right? This example I give you where something dropped 30% in 3-4 months, that's unheard of. And so if I'm buying into that area again, guess what? I'm thinking already I'm going to be sitting in this thing for at least 3, 4, 5 months between the purchase and a rehab. I'm going to probably project another, believe it or not, another 10, 20% price drop. So as we're going through this, you have to be very cognizant of how to act. But the reality of this, sooner or later, this is going to bottom out, right? I mean, it's not going to go to zero. Bottom line is, if it does, I love that, but it's not. Real estate is never going to be free. It's never going to be given away. So sooner or later, the crash is going to crash. It's going to somewhat bottom out, and at the point it bottoms out, and even now, if you understand how to play in today's game, there's huge opportunities. But the reality is, it's like a roller coaster that's going down. Sooner or later, it's going to bottom out, and sooner or later, it's going to stop, and then it's going to be very, very peaceful. And that's what I see happening in the real estate business. I think it's just happening quicker than we're used to. And so the big picture answer is this: yes, we are in a hugely depreciating turn right now, pretty much across every state. Yes, things are somewhat collapsing. Prices are collapsing. There is no question about it. But is this the time to get out of the business, or is this the time to get in the business? I can tell you there's no question about it. This is the time to get in. Because in the end, as a real estate investor, it's just like as a stock buyer, just like as a watch buyer, just as a precious metal buyer, just like an oil buyer, you want to buy low and sell high. And we're going low. We're going low. So I could tell you, if I'm sitting here evaluating, am I glad I'm on this business? Absolutely. If I was sitting on the other side of the lens, brand new in this business, and thinking, should I get in this business? This is absolutely the time to get in, because this is where opportunities are created.
Absolutely.